All right, how's it going? Welcome to episode 8 of season 2 of the Jumping the Rail podcast. This is Mark Redmond coming to you from Champaign, Illinois. And as usual, joined by my buddy and tag team partner, Gary Vaselio. Gary, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm tired, but alive.
Me too. It's been a hell of a week. Just busy, busy, busy. But the good thing is we've always got pro wrestling. But
That that we do every
yes,
night.
for better or worse sometimes. So it's I know we're a wrestling podcast, Gary, but you and I are also big baseball fans. So I think it should we should make a note today. Gaylord Perry passed away.
Oh,
The
really?
Yeah, 84 years old. If Ric Flair was the dirtiest player in the game in wrestling, I think that claim could very easily go to Mr. Perry in baseball.
Yeah, put a little something on the ball every once in a while.
Yeah, I think Eddie Harris from Major League was based on him.
I
He even
yeah,
kind of looked like him, putting the KY jelly on the ball and
yeah.
occasional snap ball. But yeah, he was one of the great ones. So I say cheers to Gaylord Perry on the video here. So
Lost a lot of them in the last year or two.
yeah, the COVID didn't help.
No.
A lot of Hall of Famers and a lot of our youth. But like I said, for all the bad news, I had a good day today because it's like Christmas come early for me, Gary. Because I don't know if our listeners know, I'm a bit of a belt collector. It's a hobby that I don't do a lot of anymore, just because it's kind of a dent in the old bank account sometimes. But I did get a delivery from my belt guy in Pakistan, Ikris Khalid, and ISK Customs, and it's a good one. Hang on.
Your belt guy in Pakistan.
I have a belt guy in Pakistan. Who doesn't though?
Well,
But most of what I have, I've got a couple of like heavy. I got an IWGP belt that's kind of junk. I got it off eBay, and then I got a big gold that's really cool. I got some signatures on. But most of what I got is tag team belts, and this one came in today. Got the Ring of Honor title from '04 to 2010. Got reintroduced this past year. FTR's had it, but a lot of my favorite tag teams have held this one, Gary. And whether it was the Briscoes or the Kings of Wrestling or Punk and Cabana, just this. Plus, it's just a cool looking belt, so I was glad to get that in the mail today. And
yeah, I was never really up on our. Well, I knew what was going on, but I never got to see it. I wasn't in those tape trading circles.
no, I had a buddy that would go to the shows when I lived up in Aurora, but I never went. I was usually working, so I would always give him like a handful of bucks and have him bring me back some DVDs, and so I was able to see some of this stuff. But it was probably my favorite wrestling in the mid 2000s, like even above like WWE and TNA, So just because I think what I like about it is it put the emphasis on the sport more than the stories.
Yeah,
It was very much like a Japanese promotion in the U.S., which I liked. But now it has been absorbed under the dutiful bosom of Tony Khan in All Elite Wrestling, and still
he's
don't know what's
doing
going to
something
happen with
with
Ring
it.
of Honor nowadays. What's that?
He's he's doing something with it.
Yeah,
Eventually, maybe.
yeah. For all the people that say WWE rips off ideas, Tony just blatantly ripped off WWE last weekend at Full Gear. I mean, to have a Samoan guy named Joe holding two titles, I mean, that's been done.
Oh, it's a little inside baseball, but yep,
Maybe a
true.
little bit, but it popped me. So, got to get my hot cocoa going. It's cold out today, and I'm getting over the last bits of my cold, Gary. So I'm trying to heat up the old system here. But let's talk a little bit about Full Gear. Now we didn't get to watch Full Gear live because we were at the Zero One USA show last weekend, and
Yeah.
it was a fun time. I always enjoyed the Zero One, and you know that out there because I do co-host the Zero One Shootout on every other week on this network. But this was your first time going, Gary. So just just off the top of your head, just impressions, thoughts, concerns. What did you think of the show
Um.
that you remember?
Over Overall, it wasn't bad. You could once I figured out that the guys that were from St. Louis were really that green because they are just students. That kind of that I kind of understood that. The main event was pretty good, and I'm not a huge fan of intergender matches, but it was done well. Uh, the opening to the show, if I'd have been a little more up on, but the opening was still good. Um, the mic work was good. Uh, a lot of the work was pretty good. There were some spots that were it was indie,
Yeah,
but
well,
that's what happens on the indies. That's what you're there for, to learn. So as long as you don't
yeah,
kill somebody, that's
yeah, or no serious injuries happen, and I think one of the guys, I think, got a nice little shot to the head in the buckle, but
yeah.
whatever, he's going to be all right. But yeah, you really knew nothing about the product when you walked into the building last weekend. So, uh, yeah, I think it was a good way to introduce you to it, just to kind of get an idea of the kind of the lay of the land there. But like I said, because of that, we did not see the pay per view. I had to watch it a couple days later, and I honestly, full disclosure, I didn't watch the whole show. I just kind of caught the high points. So, and everybody knows if you're not living under a rock, we've got a new world champion. Uh, young Maxwell Friedman is the champ. Got a big assist from Regal, and I have my thoughts on that, especially after last night on Dynamite. But
Yeah, I don't get the whole thing last night, but because now Regal's just kind of hung out in the wind, and he looks stupid for trusting Max. And then if they take him back to Blackpool, he's the one that's been telling him what to do, and now he's the one that screwed up, and
mm-hmm.
it doesn't make any sense.
That was my
But
exact problem. They made Regal look stupid, and he's supposed to be the veteran Street Fighter guy, and they had him fall for the oldest trick in the book. Let the guy get behind you and whack you in the head. But I didn't
you
like
know,
the pairing to begin with between Regal and MJF. That stuff seemed weird to me.
I didn't mind the program with him. Um, I got I I kind I know it was kind of they kind of shoehorned it all in there, and I understand that because I was listening to Stokely Hathaway on uh, Renee Young's show. He was the first person that kind of let slip what the plans were, and everybody knew what the plans were, but it was supposed to be Punk and MJF,
Right.
and Punk requested to work with Stokely, and that's why the firm got involved. I would have had the firm come back with MJF after the whole Regal thing. I would have had them just come out to the ring, and he would lead them off. Yeah, a heel
Or at
like
least
him
Stokely,
needs what?
or at least have Stokely come out.
Yeah, but a heel like MJF needs a stable, just because he needs people to order around, people do his dirty
Yeah.
work.
He's back up.
But so I like him as champ. I hope he's
Mm-hmm.
champ for a while. I like the idea of Moxley's attention on uh,
Page.
Page. Yeah,
Yeah.
I am tired, but and I think they could do that program well. Daniel Bryan will probably be the next in line.
That's what I'm
I
thinking.
can't see MJF dropping the title. I don't remember how long it takes to get over a torn triceps or tricep surgery. But even when Punk comes back, and I say when, because
Yeah,
I'm
you
more and more looking like I'm right,
mm-hmm.
that people are just marks,
Hey,
and he's gonna come
don't use
back,
my
and when
name
he comes
negatively.
back, it's gonna be Omega Punk at what's their big WrestleMania pay-per-view?
Either Double or Nothing or All Out. I'd say probably
Yeah,
All Out.
it's gonna be Punk, and I don't know who he'll have with him. He might have Ace Steel come with him. I was
Yeah,
kind of
possibly.
hoping. I was hoping that they would form like a faction with Ace, Punk, and MJF,
Yeah.
and him and just be mega heels. But I don't know. But when Punk comes back, because you got Kenny dropping little tiny hints about stuff, and first things I've said, and like I've always said, CM Punk's a lot of things, but quiet isn't one of them. So there's
No.
no way he would have been out this long in this situation and not said something.
No.
So, I mean, kudos to everybody involved, because there's still a lot of people who believe it, and I may be completely wrong, but it's just more and more pointing towards. I think Punk actually got hurt. I think he went into the match with Moxley thinking it was okay, and I'm guessing partway through the match, he's like, "Oh, this is bad."
Mm.
So after the match, he tells Tony, "Hey, there's
Just
something
follow
really
me.
wrong. We need to figure this out." And Tony's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Well, crap. You're supposed to go on to MJF. Moxley's supposed to go on vacation." So he's like, "Well, what can we do?" He's like, "Well, I was going to work Kenny anyway later. What do you want to do with?" And I don't think Kenny was 100% when he came back. He
Oh, he
looked
looked awful when they first came back.
awful. So I
He
think,
looked better. He looked great yesterday. So
yeah, I think it was like, you know what? I could use a few more weeks.
mm-hmm.
Punk's going to be out a few months. We're doing this whole new kayfabe thing. Let's just do that. So I don't know,
And
besides Brian, who they will have up against MJF. Maybe Darby.
maybe
They may do
I
like
know.
Jungle Boy. MJF may do the tear down the pillars of AEW thing,
Oh, that makes sense. I've heard a
because he
lot of
talks
talk
about
maybe
it all the time.
Kingston. I've
What was
heard a
that?
lot of people saying MJF and Kingston could have a really good program for the world title, which I agree with.
Yeah. They need to do something with Eddie.
Yeah, I mean it's like they keep doing him favors, like they're giving him Akiyama or Takeshita, these Japanese guys that he's always wanted to work with. But
But,
he's good enough that they could do something. I've seen him work Samoa Joe before, and they had a really stiff, really good match. This is, I mean, it was like 10 years ago, but I mean, you don't get worse in the ring. So I think they could have a pretty good program for the TNT title. Maybe Kingston used that to springboard into a run with MJF for a few months. But if MJF holds that title for anything less than 1 year, I'll be disappointed
yeah.
because MJF is, I mean, it's cliche and it sounds cheesy as hell. He is their Ric Flair at this point.
Yeah.
He's the best heel they got, and he is. I mean, I know I said last week or last episode he wasn't much of a heel because he was getting cheered for. If he wasn't a heel after last night, then I don't know what's going on because he was getting booed out of
Well,
the building after he dropped Regal.
some fans will cheer no matter what just because he's their
Oh,
favorite wrestler. But
yeah, that's true.
I think that's
But
kind of
the
where we're
cheers
at
were
now.
outnumbering the boos for a while.
Yeah. But remind me, you said you don't get worse in the ring when we talk about the WWE pay-per-view.
Well, I'm just saying in general,
Yeah.
if you're working, like it's very hard to lose a step, especially if you're somebody like a Samoa Joe.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's
Number
going to be
one, the
fine.
guy's in the best shape he's been in years, and I like him beating Wardlow for the TNT title. Uh, he's still doing the Ring of Honor TV Championship. I don't know who he's defending against at Final Battle, which I think is in a week or two. I don't think they've announced much for that show. I think Jericho and Claudio is the only thing I can think of off the top of my head for that show, and that's the one where they're doing the stipulation: if Claudio loses, he has to join the Jericho Flying Circus or whatever it's called, the JAS. And
Yeah, I mean, they might have Jericho retain, but I don't know. I think they wanted to put a little steam on the title, put it on Jericho.
yeah,
Unless Tony's finally got TB somewhere and he's wanting to get his champions back in order.
maybe, yeah. If it's not Claudio, who do you think is the guy to beat Jericho?
I don't know because I don't know who they have. I mean, they have. Well, they have Taven and Bennett, right?
Yeah, but they're not using them. They jobbed out to Wardlow like a month ago, and I haven't really seen much of them since, which makes zero sense to me.
I don't know.
Especially
I think
Taven.
Tony collects toys and then forgets he has them. Puts them in the box and then walks away. I don't know who it would be.
I'm inclined to think Lethal. But they have to Lethal if they turn him babyface.
It's true. I mean, it could be Lethal. I don't see, I know they're showing different side of Danhausen that I can't see. Yeah. Although Jericho has lost to Orange Cassidy on purpose.
So. On purpose. I like your terminology. Yeah, there's a handful of guys you could use. Plus, there's still some guys that didn't go to AEW that were in Ring of Honor. But,
yeah.
I mean, plus you got to think who of those guys is going back to Ring of Honor. I mean, some of them might stick with AEW.
Yeah.
I was thinking Roosh, but now Roosh is pretty much running Andrade's faction, so I don't think he's going to be going back.
Is Andrade hurt?
I don't know if he's hurt. The storyline he's suspended, but I don't know what the story is with that. I don't know if him and Charlotte wanted to go take a vacation or if he's just taking time off or his contract.
Yeah,
I don't know.
She's been off TV for an exorbitant amount of time.
Yeah, for most of the year.
So
meaning when she comes back, it's going to be that much bigger. And
well, I mean, Vince never let people miss her. He just trotted her out there every week. She was always in the title picture. She never had a feud that wasn't for the belt, and I think people just got sick of it because it was just, oh, Charlotte's going to win the belt again. Look at that, coming out doing her Charlotte thing. I think you have to miss somebody.
Yeah, the old case of emergency break glass thing,
Yeah.
Both on Charlotte. I heard an interview, or I read an interview, I should say, with Alexa Bliss. It was interesting. Basically, she said that while she would not, she wants to be the champion again, she says she's happier working with the younger talent and putting people over these days. And she wants to, if she's not the champion, she wants to be elevating whoever's going to be the next top star in the division, which is, I don't know if refreshing is the right word, but it's a good outlook to have. It's a very selfless attitude to have.
The right way to do it. That would be the correct way to be. But so was it MJF wins that belt, and then it was what, Paige and Britt Baker?
Oh, Saraya and Britt, yeah.
Yeah, not Paige, yeah, Saraya.
Yeah, you could see there was still some ring rust on Saraya. Good match though. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, Britt was the right person to put in with Saraya for her first match back. As far as having somebody you can count on to to make a good match happen, you know. But one thing I was glad about, Gary, is they finally dropped the interim off of the women's championship. Thunder Rosa officially relinquished the title. Jamie Hayter is your women's champion. All's right in the world. But it still looks like, and this is going off what I saw on Dynamite last night, it seems like Jamie is still playing second banana to Britt.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be a feud there.
Oh, it's coming. It's definitely coming. Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad that Tony finally got rid of the interim label on that championship, because you know the old saying, if you can't defend the title in 30 days, you lose the title. No holding your place or anything, you know. And
yeah, I mean, if her back's hurt that bad, I mean, at this point, just get the surgery and come back. Or if there's no surgery, if it is, just do what you got to do. But if it's not her back, if it is something else, I don't know. But it's the right decision either way. You can't just hold the title just because.
Yeah, there's I saw the same thing when Cody got hurt last year when he was TNT champion. They put an interim title on Sammy Guevara for 2 weeks before Cody came back. I'm like, come on, if that's the case, just don't put the belt on Sammy at all. Just give Cody the 2 weeks. If it's going to be longer than that, then strip Cody and have a vacant championship match, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Tony wants to make AEW more like MMA. You know, that's what UFC does all the time. They have interim champions when somebody's hurt, which is weird because I mean, guys go months between fights anyway in UFC. So I
it's not. I don't know. I don't get it. It's something they do. They want to have a belt to show off. So that's all it is. It's just want to have something to put on TV.
Mm-hmm. When Shane Douglas,
it's not like UFC. It's not like UFC has a real ranking system anyway.
No, it's just Dana's whim.
Yeah, it's very ECW. Guy A shows up, fights Guy Z.
Guy Z. So just skipping B through Y altogether.
Yeah, it's just like, well, that guy, people know him, so we're gonna have you fight him.
Right. Surprised CM Punk never got a title shot.
Yeah, I'm surprised he wasn't like his second match, even though he lost his first one. I'm surprised he didn't get a shot at the belt. That's what I always said about Lesnar. It's like, dude's never had a professional fight. Wins one fight. What was it, the second or third fight he had? He was fighting for the heavyweight championship.
Third fight. He lost his first, and then second fight he won. Then they gave him Couture, and he won. That was an awesome fight, but I mean, come on.
I'm sure there wasn't anybody else in line. You know, because Frank Mir just probably wasn't in line at all. So
no,
that's okay. Frank got his shot.
Yeah. And that went swimmingly for him. But speaking of ECW, that reminds me when Shane Douglas was the world champion, he got hurt, and this is mid-98, I think it was, when he hurt his arm. He was still showing up on TVs every week, showing up at the pay-per-views. He was doing commentary, so he was still visible with the title, which is different than like nowadays when guys get hurt and they go home for 6 months. Shane's one of those old school guys where if you don't show up on TV, you're not getting paid. You might lose your spot, you know. And then, it's kind of gone. It's kind of gone by the wayside. Punk did that a little bit during his run in WWE when he got hurt. He was still showing up on crutches with the belt and everything. But other than that, usually it's just they go off TV until they're back, and it just something's missing, you know.
What else was there? That
let's talk about the trios championship, Gary. The Elite came back against the Death Triangle. Good match. You know, I enjoyed it. I don't get why they're doing a best of 7.
That's a lot. I know this last night was pretty short. It was kind of a out of nowhere victory, but any like best of 5, best of 7 series eventually, like even what was it? Was it Benoit and Booker T in WCW?
Yeah, for the TV title, best of 7.
And those guys can work. But by
Mm-hmm.
the end, I'd seen everything they could do, and I was just kind of bored. And trios matches, I know there's so much they can do, but man, it's just I can only watch somebody do the same flippy do spot so many times,
Yeah,
and
because
it's already boring for me. But because I just yeah, I mean it's good for like an attraction match where it's so different, like it's so fast, it's so energetic. But if you're seeing it literally every show and you're seeing the same 6 guys every show, then it starts to get boring. But well, considering you have 3 of your executive vice presidents in the match, I'm sure they talk their boss into it. They're like, "Oh yeah, this will be
yeah.
great."
Oh yeah. See what I liked about, and they did the best of 7 again with. Well, they've been wanting Booker again in WWE for the U.S. title in 05, 06, something.
Yeah,
And then they did it with Sheamus and Claudio before they started
yeah,
teaming up. But what I liked about the Sheamus Claudio one is that they were also doing, and the same thing with Booker and Cena when they did their best of 5, I think it was. They would do some of the matches on house shows. So you weren't getting
yeah,
that match every week on TV. It was like they'd do it on, say, SmackDown. Then on the weekend loop, they would do another one. And then, like, the next weekend at the pay per view, they'd space it out a little bit more. So you weren't watching 5 matches, you were only watching 2 or 3 of them. And that's something where AEW is missing having a house show loop. They don't do live events, so they're just doing TVs. So it would almost do them well to have a couple of these matches on Dark or on Elevation on YouTube. Just
yeah. I mean, plus then you can see how much they actually draw if you're Tony. See
yeah,
what your viewership goes up. Say hey, we're gonna have these 6 guys on Dark. Come watch Dark. Make a big deal about it, and then see how much your viewership pops up,
yeah.
and see if they're
Well,
worth the money you're paying them.
yeah. Both times I went to a Dynamite, and this is like the first couple months that they were on. It was like November, December of 19, and both times they taped Dark after Dynamite's off the air, but both times they had Omega on Dark. I think one night he wrestled Janela, and one night he wrestled Kip Sabian. But he was the last thing in the ring was Kenny Omega.
Kip
Which so I
Sabian was
mean,
back for a cup of coffee too, and then he seems to be gone again.
yeah, I don't know what happened with that because Pac turned heel, so he's got nobody to work with. Now Pac's the Hammer Man. And,
Oh yeah, yeah. The trios thing, I'm kind of over it just because I'm I'm in the very I know I'm in the vocal minority when it comes to not caring about the Young Bucks or Kenny Omega. Could care less. I think they're mostly all hype. They have about 4 moves in between them, and they just do them on repeat. Same thing I feel about Jimmy and Jey Uso. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. I'm just tired of seeing it. So I could care less what they do.
yeah, that's where Sami Zayn is so valuable with the Usos. He's giving them that new wrinkle that makes them a little bit
Yeah.
different. But you talk about Pac, and he's got the doing the trios thing. I'm still waiting for him to get a significant run with a singles title there, because you watch him in the ring. And I put Scorpio Sky in this conversation too. He's probably the most consistently like solid guy they've got in the ring. You never see
Well,
him make a lot of mistakes. He never like when he'll do the flippy shit, but he's got such good body control that it looks like it's easy, and he always lands on his feet, both figuratively and literally, and he can wrestle on the mat. He can do the submission stuff. He can do the technical stuff. I don't know why he's not at very least in the TNT picture right now.
I don't know. Well, they had him with the was it that Intercontinental belt or whatever it is?
Yeah, the All Atlantic Championship, and they had him going back to the UK and going all over the world defending it. But that doesn't do a lot of good on Dynamite.
Yeah, I don't know. You're gonna have to figure out too. But with Pac and with all these guys, now you have a reformed, resurgent, re-energized House of Black.
Yeah.
And I'm sure at some point Tony had to make some promises to get those guys to stick around. Because I'm guessing that even though, they're back and everybody thought they were all gone, I'm sure there were rumblings about, hey, you're not doing anything with us. And they wasn't. And that faction's too good just to be doing nothing. Even Julia
Hart. Yeah.
Julia Hart came a long way.
Yeah.
So I don't know about in ring. I don't know about in the ring, but character wise, doing good stuff.
Yeah, that's it. She doesn't have to be in the ring. She can just do what she's been doing like on the outside, distraction spots and all that stuff. But yeah, there's not a weak link in the House of Black. Everybody in that group is so good. Buddy Matthews, I've said for years, is one of the most underrated guys in the business in the ring.
Yeah.
Malachi, his work speaks for itself. Just going back to NXT, he's got that whole package where everything he does is interesting. The look, the entrance, the way he wrestles, the way he talks. He could very easily be a top guy in AEW, and I think he should be.
Yeah.
But they've got such a logjam of big finger quotes, big stars in AEW right now. It's hard to get a leg up sometimes, So when you got your Jerichos and your Moxleys, and I don't want to say all the ex WWE guys because Black is one of those guys too, but it's hard to kind of squeeze into that top echelon in AEW right now, especially now that Kenny's back.
I would guess. I mean, this hits back on the pay-per-view, but the Acclaim's got to have somebody, and they got to have a big heel because they're such huge faces. So, I mean, House of Black seems to be probably the best option at this point to take the titles off them and come out bigger heels for it, because there's not going to hurt. That wouldn't hurt. I mean, right now, the Acclaim don't need titles right now. They're so over. Just have them show up on TV. They are basically DX right now. When DX, all they ever did was come out and talk. So and Lord knows I could not stand the New Age Outlaws, but they are much better than the New Age Outlaws were.
In the ring, definitely, and maybe not a coincidence that Billy Gunn is with him. I got to take a picture of my cat to tell on her to my wife because she is misbehaving right now. My studio is in the living room, and my cat likes to mess with the Christmas tree, which was cute when she was a kitten, but now that she's fat and borderline dangerous, it's not so good. But so sorry about the slight pause there.
They claimed Soraya, MJF, the Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus.
No, they're split. They had the cage
match. They had a match on the pay-per-view, the cage match.
Yeah, that was a good match. I mean, for what it was, cage match. It's gonna be a spot fest with those two guys. Luchasaurus didn't hurt anybody, which is a pleasant surprise. Uh, he tends to work a little sloppy in the ring sometimes, but it is what it is. Uh, yeah, so then you got that. You got Jaden, the Nyla Rose, which was, for what
Well,
it was good.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to do with Jade. I mean, she's still on the win streak. I guess you keep her where she's at, but eventually you run out of people to run through that wood chipper.
Yeah,
And right now you have Jamie Hayter, who is really over, really good, and she's going to be doing a program with Britt. I don't know where you put Soraya. If
yeah,
she's if you put her at the bottom of the division and have her work her way up, but even if she is 100%, she's probably on some version of borrowed time.
yeah.
So you might want to get what you can out of her while she's there. So, but I'm not sure if I want to put Soraya in the ring with Jade, because
I
Jade
wouldn't
is a
right now.
little stiff,
Yeah,
a
she's
little
still pretty
sloppy,
green. Yeah,
still pretty green. So
that's the thing.
that's
With the women's division, they've got a lot of talent in that women's division, but they've also got a lot of room for improvement with a lot of the girls there. And unless you want to turn Soraya heel, then because then you can put her with like a Ruby Riot or a Tony Storm and have probably some pretty damn good matches out of that. But
yeah,
if you
since
turn
Ruby's
heel
back.
to face, then but I don't see them putting her with like a Nyla Rose or a Jade anytime soon. Especially
No,
her having one match back. You don't know how to paraphrase the Christmas story, how fragile she is right now. And I'm not saying that. I mean, neck injuries are nothing to fuck with. I mean, I think that's why they never let her back in the ring in WWE. They didn't want to take the chance. I mean, I get, her wanting to come back and getting a second opinion and all that. But yeah, it's nothing. It's nothing to take lightly to have a serious neck injury like she had. And so I think they want to take it easy with her, just to maximize the time they got with her.
yeah,
All right, so I think we've squeezed about all we can out of Full Gear without talking about the main event, which I think everybody saw it coming with Regal when he came down there after the referee took the bump. And yeah, like I said, I'm good with Max being champion. I hope he has a long run with it. But I just didn't. And I liked the business he did with Regal before, like when they were doing the promos in the ring on Dynamite. I thought that was
yeah,
really good
that's
stuff.
good.
But just having them paired together just seemed it just didn't jive with me. It's just MJF doesn't need a Regal. Regal didn't need an MJF. And yeah, it's just I think MJF he would have done fine just by himself without a group, even if he wanted to.
Yeah,
Maybe give him one heater. Maybe give him a W Morrissey or somebody like a Willie Hobbs to be his heater. But
yeah,
it just seemed like they fast tracked everything, which Tony has been known to do. To just take a hot angle, in this case, Regal going with MJF, fast tracking it just a little over a week to have him take Regal out when nobody knows, and everybody's got their theories about Regal. Is he done? Is he still have 3 years on his contract? Did he only sign a 1 year deal? That can't get a definitive like for sure of anybody online, and they can't anyway. No dirt sheets, but everybody has a different theory, and I don't know what the case is. But
well, I'm sure if it's a 1 year deal, Triple H has reached out. I can almost
oh,
guarantee it.
I'm sure.
And it would
Good.
depend on what Regal is looking to put in the bank for retirement, what he's really wanting to do. Because Michaels is pretty much running NXT, but if I don't know if he gets to go back and work with kids, but he's working with a lot of people in AEW right now, kind of filling that same role. So it's it'll probably come down to how much is how much.
Yeah. With all the NXT guys that are up on the main roster now, I could almost see him going up in like a GM capacity on the main roster if he was to go back. Because I mean, Adam Pearce is doing what he can, but
Yeah.
he's not the most respected official backstage when you watch television. He tries to throw his weight around, and people kind of just blow him off almost sometimes. They don't do that with Regal. Regal's a respected veteran, and not saying Pierce isn't, but Regal's got that aura about him. And when a British guy yells at you, it tends to have a little more weight to it than a Chicago guy.
Yeah.
Hey, knock it off there. That doesn't sound as good as if it's a Regal. I may have made a spectacle of myself there. All right, so I think we can move on from the Full Gear Gerald, and let's talk about Survivor Series a little bit. Overall, I thought it was a good show. I had some issues with some of the things in there, but overall impressions of the show from you.
The women's match was, man, like you just got Bailey back, and I can't remember the spot. It was like a powerbomb spot that, like, Bianca Belair spiked her basically, and those matches to me are just invitations for people getting hurt, and you've got 10 people with the chance of getting hurt in each of those matches. Because you have all that plunder, you're going through ladders, you're jumping off cages. It's just, while they're fun to watch, I'm glad they only do them once a year, because it's a lot of dumb. But it was a good blow off. So I like the women's. The men's was, of course, you got your big Sami Zayn, not turn, but just being cemented into being cemented into the Usos. I don't know where you go from there, though. Like, there would be a part of me, if you gave me the book and the money, and you told me, hey, who at this point where are you going to have take the belt, one of the belts off Roman? I'm saying Sami Zayn. And I'm saying, like, you get him in a match, do it like a 3-way or a 4-way. Roman brings Zayn in on purpose because he knows he's one of his guys, making it like a 2-on-1, or and then Zayn screws him, takes the title, and runs away.
That would be a very simple thing to do.
Yeah, so that's what I would do. Because where else are you going to go? At this point, there's nothing else for Sammy to do. He's going to be Sammy. He's going to be running around. He's going to be mouthing off. He's already proven himself. You can do that for another month or so. That's fine.
Sure.
But I don't know. Of course, I don't know what The Rock's going to be doing, or if The Rock is coming to Mania, or we'll know here in a few months. I'm sure he'll make his appearance at Rumble, but that's all dependent on that. But I don't think Reigns needs either of the belts before he faces The Rock anyway. I think he needs them both gone.
I'm with you.
So I'm fine with him losing to whoever.
Mm-hmm.
I would have a match where it was like, all the belts are on the line. First fall gets this belt, second fall gets this belt, and You could give one to McIntyre and one to Zayn. Give one to Owens, one to Zayn. You could. I would. I would book that. I would say it was a 3-way or a 4-way with Owens, Zayn, Reigns, and McIntyre, and then I would have
I'd throw Rollins in there.
Rollins, and then uh, have Owens win one title, and then or have whatever happened, and then Owens and Zayn turn on Rowan and screw him out of the belt. But I would give Sammy the title right now. You might as well. He's never going to be any hotter.
No, definitely not. I had a thought before the pay-per-view, and if you really wanted to cement the Bloodline as a heel group, which right now they're kind of on the fence. I mean, they're getting a lot of cheers out there. They're over. The whole "we the ones" and the finger and all that stuff. They should have, after they won in War Games, they should have had Sammy go in for the hug with Roman. Roman puts the arms out, and then as Sammy goes in, Roman just pop him, just nail him, and just knock him out. And this is, and my theory is also dependent on their blood policy. I would have just bloodied the hell out of him, just run him into the cage, hit him with the chair, all that stuff, and just leave him just a heap in the ring. And that would get them their heat back. They could be the heels, and then I think they've already announced, or they're close to announcing, Owens and Roman at the Rumble for the undisputed title. And that could be something where either Sammy helps Owens win, which is possible, or
just
Roman wins Roman wins and Sammy comes out for payback afterwards.
Yeah.
Then maybe he challenges Roman. Maybe he and Owens challenge the Usos. Maybe they take the tag belts off of them, because they're about due. Also, they're a little over 400 days. So.
Oh yeah, they're past due.
Yeah, but Owens and Zayn has always been a fun team. There's all kinds of options, but that's how I would have done it. I mean, at the risk of hot-shotting an angle, but this Sammy Roman bloodline thing has been going for a few months now. I think if they were to end it, I think there's been enough time that they could do it without getting too much backlash.
What else was? Finn and AJ was Finn and AJ. It wasn't really anything special.
No, they're never going to have a bad match with each other.
No, because they're both really good at what they do.
Yes.
They're both very competent professional wrestlers.
Yes. Which is what every wrestler wants to hear. You're very competent. Thank you. But you had the very best. You had the run-ins, which is expected. But I mean, I was a little surprised AJ got the win. I thought they would have had Finn win, because they're really heating up Judgment Day the last few weeks. But yeah,
I'm not sure when they're going to bring Edge and Beth back. Maybe they'll do that at Rumble.
Possibly, maybe Mania.
Yeah, maybe do a tag match at the Rumble and then have
Edge and Beth. But
maybe a tag at the Rumble and then singles matches at Mania, since you have 2 days to fill.
Maybe that makes sense. And it's coming, definitely. I mean, to have them come out and be in the Rumble, I mean, it's been done the last 2 years. They gotta give them something a little bit different. But yeah, you could easily do something, even Dominic and Rhea against Edge and Beth at the Rumble. But I still want to see Dominic and Ray at Mania, mask versus hair match. Especially after that. Hey, it's a lucha tradition, man.
It is.
And that'd be a way to heat up Dominic, have him win, take Ray's mask, walk around with it like a trophy for a while. Finally get that mask off of Ray, because he never should have had it back to begin with because he lost it in WCW.
Oh yeah.
But leave it to Vince McMahon to say, "Oh, that never happened, pal." You know.
I don't even remember what else was on that show.
I do. Well, the best match of the night for me was the three-way for the U.S. title: Rollins, Theory,
Oh, that
and
was pretty
Lashley.
good.
I like the Theory won. I like how Theory won. It was one of those, you know, you don't expect it. You thought that. I honestly thought that Lashley was going to win going into the show because you know he's built like a brick shit house and he runs through everybody. But the fact that they had it where Lashley did the dirty work for Theory to get the pin, I like because it makes Theory that much more of a scumbag of a heel. And I love what they're doing with Theory now, like kind of giving him the attitude change, and he's not the goofball with the cell phone anymore and all this business. And it's almost like they used. I'm not gonna say that him cashing in was a bad booking decision because I kind of get it, but all the fans are talking. Oh, Triple H made a mistake, and now he's trying to backpedal, saying that he meant to do this. Like, how do you know he didn't? You know,
He didn't
it's
make a
easy to
mistake.
armchair quarterback, huh?
He didn't make a mistake. He just realized the kid wasn't ready yet. Like a lot of people realize, hey, this kid's not ready yet. He's going to be at some point, but it's just not. Are you really going to have him take a title off of Reigns? You're going to have Austin Theory take one of Roman Reigns' titles.
That's why I like Theory's promo a couple weeks ago so much. Because Theory came out and cut a promo saying, you know, I could have cashed in on Reigns, but you can't get to him without going through everybody. And if I cash in, they're going to just screw me over anyway. And they're trying to build up the U.S. title as the top belt on Raw. So why not have him cash in on that? It just makes sense to me that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like what they're doing with both of those belts, U.S. and the Intercontinental. They're really building them up to be like the main belts on the show because the world title's not getting defended on TV. It's just on pay-per-views pretty much. So now they got Gunther going to defend against the winner of the World Cup, which I think they decided tomorrow. And then, yeah, Theory's doing his business on Raw with Rollins and Lashley and all these guys. And they're really building up the prestige more for those, which I've been wanting them to do for years. But it almost seems like Vince put the briefcase on Theory because he thought he was going to be the next big flash in the pan. It's like Triple H. As soon as he took the book, it's like, okay, how can I get the briefcase off of Theory?
Yeah.
You know. So
well,
I think
I'm sure there was a part of it that was just, hey, you're Vince's dude. Sorry, I got to do this.
Right.
I can't have you running around here like you own the place. Because the guy who did own the place is gone now.
Right.
So I gotta put my stamp on this, and you're the unfortunate recipient of my stamp. So
yeah, and it's not a case of everybody for years they've always talked about Triple H burying people. I don't think this is a burial or the failed cash in wasn't a burial.
He wouldn't have a title at all. He would be jobbing out to everybody. He's not being buried. He's being built.
Yeah.
Instead of just being shot to the top, he's being built into a competent. Like his promos weren't good.
No, they were bad.
These last few have not been bad. He's got a little bit of fire in his eye. Mm-hmm. His in-ring work's got a little bit of grit on it now, which helps.
Yeah.
So this is good for him and his entire career.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, it was like, and I'm not saying that he was like they didn't bury him because they put the belt on him. As soon as he lost that cash in, that's when everybody came out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, he's getting buried." They didn't wait a week to see what's going to happen. Like they're so used to Vince, like everything happens now. Next week doesn't matter.
your
But Triple H,
your
it seems like he's much
your
more into like the slow burn on a
your
lot of his
average
angles.
wrestling your average wrestling fan is just dumb. That's what it is. Like they all they know is what they seen every week, and they don't think any other way. They think within these little boxes, and which is, that's actually good for the industry because you don't have to wow people all the time because they're not going to appreciate it anyway. They have what like it's a kind of the same thing with music or movies or books. There's only so many ways to tell a story, to write a song. Every chord progression has probably been used at this point. Every match idea has been used at this point. There's nothing
Yeah.
new under the sun. We've been around doing what we're doing as humans way too long to get anything super over on people. So you you kind of let old stuff become new stuff again. And I think that's what Triple H is doing. I think
Mm-hmm.
Vince was just stuck in his just mindset of he was just trying to make the most PG, just white toast product he could because he wanted to get sponsorship. He was building this and that. But what he wasn't realizing was he was losing viewers, he was losing attendance, and he was just like, oh, they'll come back. I don't think they would have. From what I'm seeing, people are coming back to shows and to pay-per-views. Like their attendance has been, it looks like it's been way up.
Yeah.
So people are responding to people showing back up, to newer storylines that are basically old storylines that are being told better than they were. Um, you got people with a little more freedom on the mic and just little stuff like that. Triple H doesn't have to be a genius. He just doesn't. If he just doesn't screw this up, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like Tony Khan, same way. Just don't screw it up, and you're going to be fine because you have your own segmentation of fans. Like I watch everything just because I am programmed to watch wrestling. Like, there's a lot of fast forwarding. I'm not going to lie to you. This is a guy who does a wrestling podcast every other week and talks wrestling all the time. But there's a lot of fast forwarding. There's a lot of like, I've seen this, and then it's like spot, spot, spot. Oh, what was that? Oh, what was that spot and that spot? Okay, I get it. Okay, and now they're talking. I'll listen to them talk, get the storylines across. And then I'm like, oh, I want to see this match. And I'm like, oh, that was good. But it takes a lot for me to really get into something. And some matches this year have done it, which there have been years, especially the last few years, where no match really lit a fire. Where I was like, oh, that was excellent. But Danielson has had some just bangers. Punk versus MJF in the dog collar match was good. So like AEW's come through, but now in WWE, there's been some storylines and some matches. Like every time Rhea Ripley's on screen, I want to find out what she's doing because she is just elevated to a different spot. Dominic's even becoming interesting because he wasn't before. I care that Austin Theory is a living, breathing person. Like I just didn't care before. I knew he was on my screen, but I didn't care. But now I'm starting to like say, hey, this is actually a decent storyline, and these are things that I want to pay attention to. So yeah, I overall I think the business is trending in a very good way. Even TNA, not TNA, Impact. with the whole Bully Ray turn on Josh
Yeah.
Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
I actually want to see where that's going. Because I know Bully can pull things out of people. There's a few people on their roster that I kind of want to know what they're going to do with like the Violent by Design stuff, because
Yeah.
I'm a big Eric Young fan, and I don't know. I know Triple H liked him a lot, so I'm wondering if maybe there's been feelers put out for that. The comebacks in some capacity, maybe be an agent, or but Eric seems to want to work. So like the business on the whole has a lot of growth potential right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't see a whole lot of crossover. Like there's a lot of segmented fan base, which is kind of weird. It's all wrestling.
Yeah.
What else was on Survivor Series, Marcus?
It wasn't much. I mean, there was only like 5 matches on the show, and I think we covered. I mean, there was Shotzi and Ronda, but that match kind of speaks for itself.
Oh, hey, there it is.
Uh-oh.
You were saying that you don't regress in the ring. Ronda
Do we have
Rousey
a jumping
has
Gary
got
moment?
worse. I didn't think it was possible because she was green when she first started.
Mm-hmm.
But then
She
by
was
the end of
confident.
her first run, she was competent. Like she was very
Mm-hmm.
competent. She was hitting stuff. Her promos were much better. She took that time off. She came back, and I think whoever was writing her promos just didn't know her voice.
Mm-hmm.
Her promos have gotten better over the last few weeks because she's a much better heel than she is a baby.
Agreed.
Got to let her be a heel.
Mm-hmm.
But her in-ring work is awful, and it's just bad. Like that match, like Shotzi did nothing wrong.
No.
Like Shotzi tried to carry that match.
And Shotzi worked her ass off. Shayna worked her ass off on the outside.
Yeah, but there was nothing either of those two could do to save how bad that match was.
Yeah.
It was awful,
Yeah.
and it's ridiculous that I don't know. It's far be it from me to know the mind of another person, but I think she's just so busy doing other stuff besides wrestling that she is not putting the time in. And if she is putting the time in and she's still this bad, then she needs to step away from the ring because it's bad. It's just bad. It's bad, bad. Like I don't know how you even use her to elevate somebody at this point because she's bad. She's so bad in the ring. You
Gary,
had the belt on Liv, and you took it off of Liv, put it back on Ronda. Now, who are you going to have it take her off of Ronda? Like you built Ronda Rousey up to be this beast. Unless you're going to have, I mean, I'm hoping they have Shayna take it from her.
That's what I'm thinking.
That would be my pick, but Ronda is really bad. It's just I know she's talented. She's a judoka. She's a actual fighter. I know she has actual athletic ability in her somewhere. I just don't know if she's ever really taken wrestling seriously enough to want to elevate to where the other people are.
Gary, I think my cat heard your cat, and she's come over here. She's like, I hear a cat.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
I think your cat is offended by your Ronda take.
Well, could be.
Well, I tend to agree with you. I like that they've got Ronda with Shayna as a unit right now, but I think that does lead to Shayna challenging Ronda. Either I'm thinking maybe a Mania, maybe have Shayna win the Rumble, and same idea you were saying with Roman and Sammy. Ronda said, "Oh, well, you're going to challenge me. You'll just lay down, and I'll get a night off." And then Shayna's like, "Fuck that," and actually beat her. And
Yeah.
Finally make her look strong after 2 or 3 years of her just looking like a afterthought when she really
Yeah.
shouldn't be.
Well, I'm sure Vince would look at her like, "Oh, you're not tall and blonde and jacked.
I wouldn't
You
dig you.
actually look like a real person. We can't have a real person as our champion."
Perish the thought. But
Perish the
where,
thought.
where they
Somebody who
had
eats, breathes, and sleeps wrestling, who is trained in catch wrestling.
by Billy
Yeah,
Robinson, thank you.
let's yeah, let's not have her as our champion. But you
And
saw
she
where
wants
the
to take everybody
division
with
was
her
going.
too.
You saw where that
Yeah.
division was going, though. When Vince was quit, it was going back to Diva Land.
Yeah.
It was you had
two pay-per-views away from bra and panty matches again.
yeah, it was awful. And then you see all the women in NXT, but now you've seen them get pared down to people who can actually work. And they're working better, and it's not just this or that, or you're not just walking. You have to be able to do what you're out there to do. Triple H taking that division over was the best thing to ever happen to it. It was heading in a horrible direction.
Yes, I agree. Well, Gary, there's something I don't know how much you watch of NXT, but I want to get your take on this Iron Survivor Challenge business that they're building up for, I think, for the next takeover. It seems kind of convoluted, just from what I've seen of it. Uh, have you heard about this at all?
I saw them talking about it.
Okay.
They had to pick 5 people,
I want to
and
read the rules to you, just so because I want to. Number one, I want to see your facial expression. But so here we go. Iron Survivor Challenge match is a special 25-minute match with 5 wrestlers competing in the ring. The match takes us some aspects from Iron Man matches, War Games, and Impact's King of the Mountain match to create a whole new format. It already seems like just a mess, just from
that's
reading
a
that first
cluster.
paragraph. Yeah.
Just a cluster
The
waiting to happen.
The match starts with 2 wrestlers. Like a War Games match, 1 wrestler will enter the match every 5 minutes. To win the match, wrestlers have to earn points through pinfall, submissions, and disqualifications in 25 minutes. So I guess that's the Iron Man aspect. These 2 parts of the format come from the Iron Man match. Okay, I should have kept reading. Also, when a wrestler gets pinned, submits, or gets disqualified, he or she will have to spend 90 seconds inside a penalty box. That's the King of the Mountain aspect of it. Format and rules: 5 wrestlers will compete. They bat each other and the clock. 2-minute wrestlers start. No foreign objects, steel chairs, ladders, or other type of equipment are allowed to be used in the match and will cause disqualification. A wrestler earns a point through pinfall, submissions, and DQs. It seems pretty cut and dry. The wrestler with the maximum points at the end of 25 minutes will be the winner and will get number 1 contendership for the NXT Championship and the Women's Championship. So it looks like they're doing 2 of these, one for the men, one for the women. And I didn't watch NXT Tuesday. I was busy, but I think they've announced most of the participants, but I haven't seen who is in it yet. There we go.
I saw that they were supposed to, and I don't know if I finished NXT. I think I fell asleep, to be honest with you, or
Okay,
I
here we
was
go.
doing something else, and then I saw them trying to figure out who they wanted. It was like Molly and Alundra Blaze and Trips, or they're not Trips, Michaels, Waltman, and Road Dogg. They're all trying to make their decisions.
Yeah, okay, I got participants here. So far confirmed: Carmelo Hayes, JD McDonough, Joe Gacy, and Grayson Waller. The final participant will be determined in a 3-way match between Andre Chase, Axiom, and Von Wagner on next Tuesday's NXT. So there you go. And then the women's match: Zoe Stark, Cora Jade, Roxanne Perez, and Kiana James are announced for it. And same deal. The last participant will be determined on a 3-way between Indy Hartwell, Wendy Chu, and Fallon Henley, who I think is the girl with the Cowboys,
Yeah.
the the faux APA.
Yeah.
So, not a bad lineup on either match, to be honest with you, from what I've seen. So I'm curious to see where it goes. But yeah, it's got clusterfuck written all over it. Just
I
with all
do
the rules.
I do enjoy NXT for the simple fact that people have jobs again, not just
Yeah.
like wrestlers, but like there's that one guy that was just a security guard and now he's a
Oh, Hank.
wrestler, Hank. And
I
then
forget his
there's
last name, but
Fallon,
Hank.
who she owns a bar, and that's where they met her. And then all of a sudden she's a wrestler. Like Kiana James is a runs her own corporation or something, and then wrestles basically on the side. So
So you like the
there's
vocation-based characters again?
yeah, there's like I mean, even your cult leader is kind of it's his job. It's not just he's not
True.
just a wrestler who's a cult leader. He's a cult leader who wrestles.
Well, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. But
But
yeah,
then you
then
have like you have a guy who's a mafia boss who also wrestles.
right.
So I think some of that or a lot of that is holdovers from when Vince was in charge, and now Triple H kind of has to deal with it.
Right.
But I don't think that's horrible when you're building a character. I don't think that's something you can do once they're on the main roster.
Mm-hmm.
But while they're in NXT, if you're trying to help them figure out the character, immerse them a little bit more into it, that's not a horrible thing.
No. Let's give them a chance to find their feet as far as building a character goes. And who knows? Maybe that's like what's her name? Maybe she actually did work at a bar before she got signed. So she's like, "Hey, what do you know how to do?" I was like, "I know how to be a bartender." All right, do it.
Well,
Duke
they've
Rosie
all
was a
probably
garbage
worked.
man.
They've all probably worked in a bar.
I'm sure, or at least as a waitress or some sort of food service capacity when trying to make their bones in this business. But yeah, it takes me back to like T.L. Hopper and Duke the Dumpster Drosy and Repo Man. All these guys that had the jobs outside of the ring. Big Dusty
Oh
Rhodes.
yeah.
How many jobs did Dusty have? He was a pizza man, a taco man, garbage man, gas station man. Which, for my money, still my favorite vignettes ever done in WWF was those early Dusty Rhodes ones in the late '80s.
Yeah.
But who's not to love Dusty? So I want to get your take on something else I came across this week, Gary. Colt Cabana. Uh, I guess he had an experience in his match with Chris Jericho. He says he almost died from he made a mistake by
Compression
wearing
stuff.
compression socks and then lacing up his boots very tightly over those aforementioned compression socks and just cut off all the blood flow to his lower body, which as a mistake, it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
I hear the training staff told him so. It's like, don't ever do that again. But he gets his first big match in I don't know when against Jericho. Had a good match. It was a damn good match. I mean, I'm expecting nothing less out of Cabana, and then come back and find out, oh yeah, you almost died from circulation loss. And I don't know. You've been in locker rooms. You've been finger quotes in the business. I don't want to shortchange what you did, but did you ever have guys like that didn't know like the proper like how to prepare like with the gear like not to use certain things
Yeah.
or using too much equipment like Ahmed Johnson with all of the pads and all that stuff.
Oh well, they wore a lot of costumes and stuff, and it became difficult. But like even with me, like I would wear knee pads um and like under my pants, and I was just socks but it's just you can't wear those all day. But you would have guys that would tape up way too early, and like then their hands would start, getting a little blue, just
Oh,
losing circulation. And you can overgear. I don't know how people do they have like the boots, the kick pads, and then they'll have like they'll have the pads on top of that, like the Ric Flair style, which I don't know what it's for. And if you're gonna have knee pads, wear them on your knees. I understand wanting like as many layers of protection as possible, because landing on your knees is a young man's game. Like you should always wear knee pads, always wear elbow pads. But
right.
my buddy Josh would say different. He never did, but he was a big believer in just hitting people. So it wasn't,
Right.
wasn't really like didn't really matter. But I
Oh,
I think you see a lot of the guys who I don't. That's just weird that Cabana would start doing. A lot of those guys are so like superstitious in what they wear and how they wear their gear and when do they get ready and how they even tie their boots. That him putting on a new piece of gear is just an odd. It's almost odd to me.
yeah. Larry Zabiskie used the same bootlaces for 25 years,
Yeah.
which is impressive that he could keep track of them for that long.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said I think he was doing commentary with Shivani during I forget what match it was, but he said he always used the exact same bootlaces from the time he broke in. And it's just, I don't know if it's superstition or maybe they were just really good bootlaces. But
Or he was just
yeah,
super cheap.
super cheap maybe. But yeah, you look at, and I keep coming back to Ahmed Johnson because he had the knee pads, he had the shin pads, the elbow pads, he had the pad over his triceps. He was literally like he was still playing football,
Yeah.
and it
I
didn't help his work.
no. I mean, I know a lot of guys wear the arm sleeves out because they've had arm problems, and I get it,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm of the opinion still that I don't understand why guys get like full sleeve tattoos, because to me, like, that takes away from the look of the musculature. I mean, it's your body, you do what you want, but to see like all the work you've put in, but if you covered it up with black ink,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to make that all out again.
Yeah.
Because like Undertaker never looked as big as he was because he was just completely covered in tattoos. Like he
Yeah.
always just kind of looked like a dude in tattoos. Like Randy
Right.
Orton, dude's chisel out of stone, but doesn't look that big, even though he's a pretty big dude. Like
Right.
it's just so if you're gonna cover yourself in expressionary art, that's fine. But then if you're also going to like cover yourself in padding, then I I think you're missing out on the whole point of the body side of professional wrestling.
Right. I never got Scott Steiner getting all tatted up. He's like, look at him now. He's number one. He's got the penis-shaped sword on his chest, which I won't tell him that to his face. And then he's got like almost like tribal tattoos up and down his arms now. It's like, come on, man, you get the biggest arms in the business, and you're gonna cover it up.
Well,
and I'm not knocking tattoos. I mean, I know several people who've got the tattoos, but I mean, Scotty from the majority of his career had nothing. He had the peaks, you know, driving
it might be
the
now
peak ball.
because his career is basically over now, and I think he's completely off the gas at this point. So he's shrunk quite a bit. So I think the tattoos are probably to cover up losing muscle, and
He may wrestle in a shirt now.
But he's like what? He's got to be 60, right?
He's got to be at least close. Hang on, I'll tell you. I've got Wikipedia at my disposal here. If he's not, Rick definitely is. Scott Steiner. He is 60 years old. His
Well,
brother just for comparison.
he
Rick
had that
is
injury or that
51.
surgery where he got sliced open, and then he lost a lot of musculature in his chest from that, and so he never really was the same after that. So
No.
I'm sure he just kind of knew he was on the downhill from that point.
Yeah. That's fair. But yeah, it's. I know it's a matter of preference, and I don't want to sound like an old buddy there because I don't have any tattoos myself. I'm not against it, but just as with me, I know if I got one, like the next day, I would second guess it. It's like, do I really want this? And unless I can think of something that I'm really down for, I'm probably never going to get a tattoo. But
Yeah, I don't. I've always said there's nothing I care about enough to have in my body for the rest of eternity. Because
to get the organs
if it's my wife or my parents, they're already there. Why do I need something constantly reminding me?
Plus, you run the risk of finding a tattooist who is not good at spelling, and you're going to wind up with some
With regrets.
No regrets, that kind of thing.
Yeah. You'll end up with regrets.
Big Daddy. There was a basketball player from Oklahoma State that had Big Daddy on his arm. His nickname was Big Daddy, but they misspelled it, so from then on he was Big Daddy, which just tickled me to no end when it happened. And but I digress. I think we may have careened down another wormhole, Gary. So I'm going to try and get us back on track here, and I'm going to do that with our Jumping the Rail Hall of Fame. We're doing it again. Here we go, right there. Our fancy badge, and I gotta say, I made this logo pretty damn classy, if I do say so for myself. So, it's Survivor Series time, so I figured the guy I picked this week, kind of synonymous with the Survivor Series, debuted there, had some of his big matches there, for all intents and purposes, retired there. And you talked about him earlier, Gary, but here you go. I don't have a drum roll, so there you go. I couldn't think of which picture to use, so I used all of them. And so we're putting the Undertaker in. Kind of a no-brainer, Everything he's done in the last 32 years has basically screamed Hall of Fame. I'm not going to say Texas Red was a bad gimmick, but yeah, just Undertaker's the greatest character Vince ever came up with, hands down, if you ask me. Could only have worked with one guy, and that's Mark Calloway.
Yeah, Punisher, Dice Morgan.
Dice Morgan, yeah. Mean Mark, which
Mark Callis.
Me. Yeah, Mark Callis, one of the skyscrapers.
This guy in WCW said he was never going to draw a dime.
Ole Anderson said he wouldn't draw, so he let him go. Just another example where Ole's maybe a little bit out of touch.
Slightly.
Yeah.
I don't like. He's one of those guys where you look at him, and he could do anything in the ring. He was a giant dude. He was super athletic, and I just don't know if he was too athletic and they didn't know what to do with him. And Vince finally figured it out. But man, that's a gimmick that should never work. Not let alone work for 30 years or however long he was actually the Undertaker. That was
from 1990 to 20, basically for 30 years, 2020 or so.
Yeah,
because
it shouldn't have worked.
His last match was at WrestleMania with AJ. So, but if you had to pick Gary, and like I say, he tried on a lot of us. I'll show you the picture again here. Which one was your favorite Undertaker? I think mine would probably be the biker, the American Badass. It was the most authentic, I think, version.
Oh, you like the biker taker?
Yeah, I did. Kind of looks like me, doesn't he? No.
Probably not. Well, I mean, I have a lot of good memories of early Undertaker. I still remember like the match where all the villains jumped him and threw him in the coffin and the light,
Royal Rumble '94.
and so that was a lot of fun. Then you had the fake Undertaker, and there was like this window where I really liked him. Like he was still kind of wearing the gloves, but he wasn't. And right before like the ministry stuff, because I have a feeling he had just kind of given up during the ministry stuff. He just didn't seem as motivated. He wasn't as fit. He just
wore the big robe all the time. Just
yeah.
Cut promo. Tried to marry Stephanie.
So like Biker Taker was. I mean, that's probably right up there. Doing the last ride, he had a lot of really good matches. Probably, well, let's see. I think my favorite Undertaker was the era where he was wrestling Bret Hart, and that would like translate into like when Kane showed up. Because
like 96, 97.
Yeah, when he was just on the verge of breaking out of the Undertaker gimmick into the American Badass gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's probably all right in that little pocket right there. He did a lot of really good work. He could always cut promos. He was having really good matches with a lot of people.
Yeah. I remember when he debuted the Biker at Judgment Day in 2000. I loved the program with him with the McMahon DX group. You know, just the way he was working with Vince and trying to run him over with the motorcycle, and then the matches he had was like with Triple H and later on with Kane. But I think my favorite Taker matches from that period, and that was the match with Triple H from WrestleMania 17, which and I always liked Undertaker before then, but that one, I think that's the match that really put him over the top for me as being one of my favorite guys on the card. Because before that, I was always big into like Bret Hart, you know, Steve Austin, obviously, but then this the fact they gave him like a more realistic character, which isn't even a character, it's basically just him, and he was able to make that work, and it just kind of put him over the top for me there. And I was kind of bummed when he brought back the Dead Man in 2004. It seemed like a step back at first, but I'll be damned if he didn't make it work.
I think it was just a case of people being ready for it again. Yeah, and they were wanting that old gimmick back.
Yeah. I think Taker might have been. I think Taker was tired of it when he changed, and then I think it took a little bit of selling from Pritchard to get him to agree to do it again. But then once he got back into, I think he was good with it. But what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something, but I forget. Your favorite Undertaker match? Put you on the spot a little bit.
Michael's Taker 1
from WrestleMania 25.
Yep, because it's probably my favorite match of all time.
With the exception of the dive onto Jimmy Snuka's kid, it was a perfect match.
Yeah, that almost killed him.
Yeah. I thought the sound of the camera breaking was his neck when I first saw the match. But yeah, that match was damn near perfect. I love the matches he had with Triple H after that at WrestleMania, the Hell in a Cell, the No Holds Barred match, the match with Diesel at WrestleMania. All of his best matches were WrestleMania, believe it or not. I mean, no surprise there. But yeah, I mean, the match with Bundy wasn't great. The Hell in a Cell with Boss Man left something to be desired, but there was, I mean, as he got older, he just seemed to get better until the very end when he wrestled Goldberg.
Until he stopped getting better. Yeah, it's just he had those matches with Lesnar that weren't bad, but he was actually getting hurt in them, and you could just tell that it was taking him longer and longer to recover. And just wasn't moving the same way, and I wish he would have stepped away way before he did. The last ride match that he did with AJ was really, I mean, it was perfect for what his character was and what they wanted to do to send him off.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he finally actually stepped away with that.
Yeah, I still hear people say, "Oh, I wish he'd come back and have one more match." I don't. I mean,
No,
I'm sure if they
don't.
twisted his arm or gave him the right amount of money, he'd come back and do it. But I mean, and yeah, I know his last match wasn't in front of fans, so people say, "Oh, he should have one more match in front of the fans." I mean, it was a perfect send off. They literally had him riding off into the sunset on his motorcycle.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
if you want to have him
sunset.
come back from, if you want to have him come back from Mania and choke slam some people, go.
Sure.
You know, do that to your heart's
That's what they do with
content.
Austin.
It's just like Austin's kind of got the itch to do matches again, like once or twice a year. That's fine, but you know, if I were Triple H, I would make sure that those weren't like 30-minute Broadways like he put on with Owens. Like,
yeah,
I think that was just Austin exercising some demons and realizing that, hey, I can still, I'm not going to be paralyzed after this.
Right.
And taking bumps on concrete, but like just working a Steve Austin style match with a dude that loves Steve Austin. So I don't know where you go from that. Like, if you like have tag matches or if you have him in matches, like every match is gonna kind of end up being the same thing. Because you can't have Austin look weak. Otherwise, why are you having him come back? But then again, if you're having this guy who wrestles once a year beat people every year at Mania, you know, like what message are you sending to that? So
the period of having 2-night WrestleManias is the perfect time to do it if you're going to do it, because you're not really taking a spot from somebody to get that to happen. But yeah, I agree. I mean, Austin, he was never like, once he really blew up, a lot of his matches were very similar. Just the same spots, you know, and it worked. I mean, he was over like crazy. But yeah, I mean, there's only so many people he can really work with nowadays, and like I said, he's not at the point where he needs to be beating everybody, and he's also at a point where he doesn't need to be putting everybody over.
Yeah.
And not unlike Sting, but Sting still manages to beat everybody for some damn reason. But I digress. I don't want to get off on my Sting rant again. I tend to get in trouble when I do that. But yeah, I mean, and everybody said they should have had Taker versus Sting. I mean, after 2001, I didn't want to see it. It's just if they were going to do it, they should have brought Sting in during the invasion. But I don't need to see a 62-year-old guy wrestle a 55, 56-year-old guy, and that's how Ric Flair has matches nowadays. Although Steamboat had a hell of a match though this past weekend.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
I went back on YouTube. He's actually in damn good shape for his age, and I don't.
That makes it even funnier that he turned down Flair.
Right. Probably because he knew that Flair could possibly die, and he's like, I don't want to be responsible for that.
He's like, I can still work, Rick. I don't need you to bring me down.
Yeah. Steamboat also hell of a nice guy. I met him a couple times. Couldn't be nicer. Never met Flair, so I don't know that. Probably couldn't afford him at the old meet and greets. But I digress. One of the belts I have actually Steamboat signed for me, so actually two of them. But I'm digressing again. Well, I think the only other order of business I've got, Gary, is Top 10 Tuesday, or as I should say today, Top 10 Thursday. With my fancy editing skills there. And sticking with the Survivor Series on this one. What's that?
I said, look at you go.
I know I'm really making a meal out of this, being able to put graphics up and all this stuff. So our topic, we're sticking with the Survivor Series thing, Gary, and we're going greatest Survivor Series teams. And I tried to avoid using like actual like stables. Like remember in 1997, every match was basically like DOA against the Nation of Domination and Truth Commission
Yeah.
against such and such. So I tried to avoid that. I wanted to keep with kind of the random teams. If they all had the same manager, that'd be different. Like that's a different story because they didn't really team up that often, like on TV, which is what I love about Survivor Series. I wish they kind of go back to that. But again, I'm rambling. So we're going to get started here with number 10 from one of the more unusual Survivor Series matches. This is from the wild card match. It's Dean Douglas, Yokozuna, Owen Hart, and Razor Ramon. One of the few teams on this list that actually lost, but just four of my favorite guys on one team. Dean Douglas, notwithstanding, Shane Douglas, he's one of my favorites. And then we talked about how great Owen Hart is. We talked about Yokozuna, Razor, so in a fun match. I don't know if you remember their opponents were Psycho Sid, British Bulldog, Ahmed Johnson, and Shawn Michaels. That's the one where that's like the night before Shawn collapsed in the ring on Raw and everybody panicked, thought he was dead because of the concussions. But it was fun. Yoko was the last guy in. It was in the middle of Razor feuding with Douglas for the IC title. And so it was a fun team. It was actually a fun Survivor Series, that one in '95. That's the one where Brett beat Diesel in the main event, and then Diesel beat the hell out of him, as he should, because he's awesome. And so that's my number 10. My number 9, I'm going back a little farther. 1988. There you go. Andre the Giant, Dino Bravo, Mr. Perfect, Ravishing Rick Rude, and Harley Race. I mean, come on. I mean, if that's not a team of tough guys, I don't know what is. I mean, Harley Race himself could probably beat the other team, which, if I remember right, was Jake, Duggan, Tito, Patera, and Scott Casey, I think, was the opponents. Real all-star team there. But I don't know. What do you think? We never really talked about Harley Race, did we?
Harley was awesome.
Yeah. I was late to the party with Harley, like from his early, like his NWA stuff. I grew up with him as the King, Then I had to go back later and watch the stuff he did with Flair and Dusty and all those guys. But also one of my favorite managers when he managed Vader.
Yeah,
because he was still taking the bumps. He was still doing the headbutt off the top rope when he needed to, and also probably the only guy that, other than Paul Orndorff, that could straighten out Vader if he got a wild hair about him. And so excuse me, still getting over the tail end of my bronchitis, so I apologize to all you listeners out there. This was Perfect's first big pay-per-view on this show. He wasn't with the Genius. He wasn't with Bobby. He was just he was still using the Kurt Hennig name, actually. And yeah, he was just kind of still finding his feet there because he'd only lost to Lawler a few months before this in the AWA. But he wound up being, him and Dino were the survivors in that match after Andre just bludgeoned Jake Roberts in the in the ropes. Got DQ, didn't give a shit. Just good old fashioned heel Andre, And then there's Dino Bravo. Oh, Dino Bravo. The Italian Canadian strongman. And not the most charismatic player in the world.
No, but he had other stuff going on, Mark. He didn't have to be charismatic too. He had a lot of irons in the fire.
he really did. And went out in Bugsy Siegel fashion. just sitting on the couch watching TV and then lights out, But I didn't really appreciate Dino back then. It wasn't until I got a little older and I could really appreciate his work in the ring and how big he was. Because I
Yeah,
mean, when we were kids, he's running around with Earthquake, so it really makes him look smaller. But then you go back and watch him later on, and yeah, he's jacked, man. He's not like ripped, but just built like a brick shit house. I always use that term, but it really does apply to Dino. And but yeah, so that's my number 9. Number 8 might get me in a little bit of trouble with the some of the fans out there. 1990, get the Warriors, which I didn't get the joke in 1990, but later on I did. Got the Ultimate Warrior, the Road Warriors, and the modern day Warrior, Kerry Von Erich, on one team. And I don't know if you ever noticed this, Gary. I remember watching this match not too long ago. Warrior's got a pair of trunks on, and on the back it says "The Only Warrior," which I don't know if he's. Hey, just remember who's the boss here, boys, and which is
yeah. All
it's, you know,
all the other 3 of people in the match could have any one of them on their own torn him apart
yeah,
in a heartbeat. Gary wasn't a joke. Like, those dudes worked hard and very snug down in Texas.
mm-hmm.
And Hawk and Animal were just way too strong for their own good. So
Especially Hawk.
yeah,
Especially when Hawk got a little medicine in him,
yeah,
and then he might get a little wild in the ring a little bit. So, no, this was a fun team. I know all the Ultimate Warrior fans would say they should be higher. Like, no, I think they're good. I mean, they got the win. I think they were all champion. No, they weren't. Ultimate Warrior and Kerry were champions. They were world champion, IC champion. The Road Warriors hadn't won the tag titles yet, so that if they had all been champions, they might have been higher on the list. But no, I thought it was good. And watching it back later, like after the fact, you really appreciated it more. Uh, I loved the stuff Kerry did with Perfect uh, on TV back then in 1990. It was just a very natural rivalry to me. And yeah, so that's my number 8. Number 7, going to 2006, Team DX, Triple H, Michaels, the Hardys, and Punk. I put these guys on because they won with nobody getting eliminated. It was kind of a squash. Uh, I didn't really like the squash aspect of it because they were going up against Edge and Orton and Morrison and Helms, the Hurricane, and I think Mike Knox was the other guy. But it just seemed like their match was just a. And I'm not going to say it was Triple H's call, but it's like
it was
let's
Triple
put
H's
all
fault.
the hot baby faces on the show in one team and have them just beat everybody, which seems kind of on brand with them. Same deal. Punk's first big pay per view. He hadn't been on in the company for even 6 months at that point, and then they had just put the Hardys back together as a team. So yeah, they were putting all the big guns on this team, and yeah, so I've got them. If I was more of a fan of the Hardys, I might have had them higher on the list, but I'm really not a fan of the Hardy Boys. I've got a feeling you would agree with me on that.
Oh yeah, Matt's
I don't
not
mind. I don't
bad.
mind
Okay,
Matt.
Matt has, at least he has the ability to cut a promo, and he's fairly solid in the ring. He doesn't try to do anything way out of the box. Jeff has been sloppy since he was born, I'm guessing. So
Yeah.
when I first started watching him, I was like, oh, this is really cool. But I was a lot younger, and I'd never seen people do what they were doing.
Right.
And then I saw it a few times. I saw the first ladder match, tables, ladders, and chairs. And then after that, I'm like, oh, this is the same thing over and over and over. Like, there's never been a Jeff Hardy match since like the '90s that's been any different to this day.
No.
Like, he'll do the same moves, almost in the same order, except they're sloppier now.
Yeah.
Which was, I don't know how that's possible. And I don't know why people mark out for him so bad all the time still, but they do. So
yeah. Then they took Michael Hayes to the Hot Topic and made him look ridiculous.
well, I mean that's funny. That's
I like the story where he was taking him to the. So he's like, "We're going to get you some cowboy boots and some jeans," and they're like, "No, that's your time. This is the
yeah,
'90s. And we're going to take." They went to like the Buckle or the Hot Topic or wherever kids shop at. I
yeah,
just shopped at Walmart. And but yeah, so then Michael kind of gave him the rub a little bit before they really blew up with Edge and Christian. But anyway, that's my take on the Hardys. I've never been a big fan, and I think we can just leave it at that. Number 6, the Juggernaut from 1990, Gary, known as the Visionaries. Rick Martel, the Warlord, and Power and Glory, all managed by Slick. And same deal. They won with the Skunk. They beat the Vipers in that Jake the Rockers and Snuka in their match. And that was right after Martel had done the blinding angle with Jake, which was beautifully done, if you ask me. Anytime somebody's got an atomizer, it's just bad news. And for my money, tell me if you agree with me on this. I think Power and Glory could have done much more as a team.
well, yeah. I mean, it's not like Paul Roma wasn't a good worker. He was a really good worker. Had a great look. I don't know. I don't know if it was just him being him backstage that never let them go any further, or what it was.
I think
Yeah,
injuries played a part.
What?
I think injuries played a part in it. I think they were both
Yeah.
hurt when they wrestled LOD at Mania.
He was in a tag team in WCW, right? Too.
He
Also.
was one half of Pretty Wonderful with Paul
Yeah.
Mr. Wonderful Orndorff, and he was also a horseman.
Yeah.
For some damn reason. No, not a knock on Roma, but he did not fit in with the horseman.
Well, Lex Luger was a horseman too, so didn't. After a while, everybody had been a horseman.
After Barry Windham, everybody was a disappointment up until Benoit showed up.
Yeah.
And Pillman. I still say the 95. My favorite horseman is the Flair, Arn, Tully, Wyndham lineup from '88. But a very close second is the Flair, Arn, Pillman, Benoit lineup from '95. I thought there was a lot more that could have been done with them.
It was Flair, Benoit, Malenko, and
Mongo.
Was it Mongo? That's right.
It was Mongo until the night he went to the strip club and never came back. Then it was like Flair, Mongo, or Flair, Arn, Malenko, and Benoit, with Arn as like the JJ.
Yeah.
But that was a good group. I like Benoit and Malenko as a tag team. Even in ECW before that. But how do we always go off track? We're talking about Power and Glory, then we go into talking about Dean Malenko.
You were talking about the Four Horsemen.
It's how we roll, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. So number 5 is probably my favorite Survivor Series team, but not the greatest. From 1989. And if we don't recreate this look for one of our shows sometime, Gary, I'll be very sad. The Rude Brood.
The Rougeaus.
Mr. Perfect and the fabulous Rougeau brothers with their tiny American flags and their insincere American patriotism. I really liked the Rougeau brothers as a team. at this point in '89 when they were working like with the Rockers and Bushwhackers, and they were. If they would have stuck around, I think they would have been tag champs. But I think Raymond retired. I think he was hurt or something, and then Jacques, of course, went on to become the Mountie, which was fantastic. If not anything for his music.
Yes.
But yeah, it seemed like it's probably not a coincidence, Gary, that Rick Rude and Kurt Hennig were always on the same team at Survivor Series. You know,
Probably not.
Being Robbinsdale boys, you know, best buds and all that stuff. Same deal. Perfect was the sole survivor. This one beating Snuka. They beat Roddy's Rowdies was the team that they beat. Piper, the Bushwhackers, and Jimmy Snuka, which was such a weird team. I couldn't buy Piper and Snuka getting along. Even then, it made no sense to me because I remembered when Piper hit Snuka with the coconut.
Yeah.
And then 5 years later, they're buddies, and he's going to be on his team. I mean, come on.
Yeah, like I think that's kind of the thing that Vince always was bad about, but I think he thought it was a strength that somebody would have this huge falling out, and then they'd have their blow off, and they wouldn't touch for years, and then when they would touch again, it was like that nothing had ever happened, and that always bugged me. And I like when there's a thread, like when you haven't touched for a while and somebody says, "Hey, I still remember what you did." You know, it's not like this never happened, because that's real life. You know, you're not going to be, you know, there's a lot of people backstage that don't like each other, even in today's era of WWE and AEW, where you're just not going to like everybody. I mean, you have to work with them, but you don't have to like them. But yeah, I like the idea of guys just, yeah. After the whole coconut thing was so iconic,
Yeah,
that it's hard to get past that if you were a kid, especially, and watch that.
mm-hmm.
And then to hear Piper talk about it years later, he thought he killed Snuka. So, and then Jimmy
You got to have
was.
a pretty hard head to break a coconut over it.
Well,
Like if you hit me in the head with the coconut wouldn't break, but it would probably crack my skull.
yeah. Well,
I'm not
Jimmy is.
suggesting you hit me with the coconut.
He's Fijian, right?
He's from Fiji, yeah.
Yeah.
So those island boys always had the hard heads back then.
Well, they have, like, Samoans. They actually have thicker bone density than
Is that right?
your normal human. So I'm guessing that all the island nations have that same trait. So that's kind of where they got the headbutt thing from. Because yeah, if somebody with more bone density than you, like, headbutts you. Like, I was watching something and Zion Quinn was on it, and he's Samoan, and he was an ex-rugby player, and they tested his bone density, and they said it was a 4, and a normal person's is a 1.
Oh, jeez.
So, and he's not the world's, like, most jacked Samoan even. Like, he's kind of tall and rangy comparatively. Like, so if you got other dudes that are just like beasts, like, and there's not only are they just mail trucks made into human flesh, like, but they're also have bones that are stronger than yours.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was a weird team because I don't like to see guys who historically don't like each other on the same team. But that's
unless
just
they're
me.
actually communicating that, unless you can see the tension between them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to see these guys playing, like, buddying up with each other. But yeah, so Rude's Brood is number 5. And like I said, probably my favorite team just because I'm a big Kurt Hennig fan and a big Rick Rude fan. So that was aces for me. Number four, probably one of the strongest, like as far as like each individual member being on the team, is from 2001, Team WWF. You got Undertaker and Kane, The Big Show, The Rock, and Chris Jericho. I mean, come on, that's a hell of a team, even in 2001.
Yeah.
Uh, it's the one where they took on the alliance of Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, Van Dam, Booker, and Shane McMahon. So 3/5 of their team was WWF guys, even though they were the alliance, which is.
Yeah.
But no, I loved like the invasion angle missed in a lot of ways, but I loved the idea of it when it first started because you're in your head. You can't help but fantasy book all these matches. Like who's going to come in? Who are they going to work with? You know, and I did the same thing. Like trying to figure out who Van Dam was going to work with. I mean, when that invasion pay per view came around, it's like they put him with Jeff Hardy, which makes sense. But I was hoping that they would have brought in like Eddie Guerrero or somebody like that to work with Van Dam because I just knew Van Dam from ECW and I was a fan then. And then to just the way that they, I guess for lack of a better term, they just watered down the alliance with all these WWF guys because all the big stars were just sitting on their Time Warner contracts and not wanting to work.
Yeah.
Like your Hogan, Sting, Flair, not Flair, the Steiners, Goldberg.
DDP.
No, DDP was there. He was in the alliance.
Was he? I know he
Yeah,
waited his contract out though.
remember he was the one stalking the Undertaker's wife.
Oh yeah.
That was a winner of of an angle. But yeah, so that was there's a fun team. I mean, there's just look at this, just the star power alone on that team puts it
Yep.
in a high number on my list here. And they did win. The Rock was the sole survivor of that one, and they all got to keep their jobs. Yay! Because it was the winner take all match. But yeah, so that's my number four. Number three, if talking star power, I mean, got the Teamsters from 1994. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here between Shawn and Diesel. It's kind of an odd position to be in there.
Yeah.
Like Diesel's like, why is this girl on my shoulder? Oh, that's Shawn. Then Anvil whispering sweet nothings into Owen's ear, and then Jarrett just oblivious to all of it.
Yeah.
But for the time in '94, I mean, Owen was probably my favorite wrestler back then. Diesel was a close second. I was a big fan of Diesel back in the mid '90s, and then just for work rate, just Michaels, Owen, and Jarrett on the same team. It's just going to make for just some fine work. Plus the guys they were working with. I mean, they were working with Razor, Kid, Bulldog, and the Head Shrinkers. So that whole match was solid. Just going back to the Samoan, you look at the Head Shrinkers, and by comparison, the Usos seem tiny nowadays.
Yeah. Well, the Usos are tiny comparatively to most of those guys. Like even their little brother is bigger than they are. So.
Yeah, he's like a fire hydrant. But yeah, but they still got the. They do all the moves that the Samoans did, but they're faster with them because they're lighter. But with the Head Shrinkers, I was always a fan of. This was the second Head Shrinkers, by the way. This was Fatu and the Barbarian.
Oh.
It was after Samu had left, and they had put boots on him for some reason. I never got why they put boots on the Head Shrinkers. I think it was because of the Barbarian. I don't think he wanted to be barefoot. But if you remember, Gary, this is the match where Diesel turned babyface because Michaels hit him with the super kick on accident, and then Diesel got mad and chased him away. So it had come down to a 5-on-1. Razor was the only guy left on the team. Michaels hits the errant super kick on Diesel, and Diesel chases Michaels out. The rest of the team follows him down the aisle. So the referee just counts all 5 of them out. So Razor won the match, which is one of the most bizarre finishes to a Survivor Series I think I'd ever seen.
Well, then, yeah, nobody saw it coming, I guess.
No, I guess not. I mean, Razor was the big baby face, so he had kind of had to win. But they were pushing Diesel to the moon, and like 3 days later is when he beat Backlund for the title.
Oh, pal, you gotta this. Oh, you're not gonna see it coming. All five of them get count out.
Yeah, that was the show where Vince and Gorilla were on commentary dressed like cowboys because Vince loved to play dress up. We can laugh about Vince now. I think enough time has passed. We can
That
think
man,
back fondly on Vincent K.
that
McMahon.
man ran that company for a long time.
Yeah, he knew he was doing something right.
Yeah.
40 some odd years. But yeah, so Teamsters is my number 3. I would have had them higher if not for the other, obviously for the other two. And speaking of two, our number 2 team is from the very first Survivor Series, Gary. And I know you love that I'm stretching this out. I just want to make sure we give our people their money's worth. Number 2 from 1987. You got the Macho Man, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Ricky Steamboat, Jake Roberts, and Brutus Beefcake. They were
Brother Brudai.
Basically team foreign objects because Jake has the snake, Brutus has his clippers, Hacksaw has the big 2x4. So everybody had something, and I guess technically Randy had Elizabeth, but it's kind of the same deal that I was talking about with Piper and Snuka because just 6 months or so before, Savage was feuding with Steamboat. And then not long before that, Steamboat was feuding with Roberts. And it just seems like they put water under the bridge and they were all buddied up in the interview before the show, like before the match. It's like these guys were trying to kill each other. Jake Roberts DDT'd Ricky Steamboat on concrete.
Yep.
Right around a year before this. And
he sure did.
I mean, not his idea. Because if you listen to Jake, he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I can't say I blame him.
I love Jake telling a story because he's still like enough carny that you don't know if it's true, but he tells it so well and so convincingly that you don't care. Like when he talks about all the people like he almost fractured their skulls or whatever he did with the DDT, it's like, okay, like I kind of believe it because it was still a fairly new move and you're still trying to figure it out. But like if you don't know how to like not fracture somebody's skull with the DDT, I don't believe that.
No.
He's like, well, you can't do that on concrete. Like I understand protecting the move, and much like you and I agree on wholeheartedly, DDTs, pile drivers, certain moves need to be protected.
Yes.
But yeah, it's always funny because if he actually did all that brain damage to all those people with just DDTs over the years, then nobody would ever be able to use a DDT.
No, it'd be right up there on the no holds barred list.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also to be fair, Steamboat did tell Jake that he could protect himself.
Yeah.
He was wrong. He got his bell rung pretty well there. But yeah, so yeah, it's kind of the same deal. I mean, number one, just awesome team for star power. But yeah, I still just didn't get how these guys were at each other's throats just a few months before. Now they're all on the same team doing whatever. But I digress. I think it's time to go to our number 1, Gary. From 1989, which is actually my favorite Survivor Series. There we go. The Hulkamaniacs. Jake Roberts again. This is like his second or third appearance on the list with Demolition and Hulk Hogan. They beat the $1 Million Team, the Ted DiBiase, the Powers of Pain, and Zeus, real juggernaut. But yeah, that's probably, with the exception of the Ultimate Warrior, probably the 4 biggest baby faces in the company on one team.
Yep. poor Jake, never going to get his shot at the title, but he was a babyface.
Yeah, couldn't even get the Intercontinental title on him.
What?
I would have rather seen him do it than the Warrior.
Oh, yeah.
Give him a cool snakeskin belt. Could have sold that in the catalog in the centerfold of the WWF magazine.
Yeah.
So I love the team. I didn't like the match because basically 3 of the guys on the other team got disqualified for abusing Hogan. I mean, DiBiase pinned Roberts clean. That's fine. But Zeus got DQ'd like first because he can't work out of a paper bag, so they had to get him out of there somehow. So they had him choking Hogan, then shoving the referee down, getting DQ'd. And then the Powers of Pain just basically double teamed him. I think they hit a spike pile driver on him or something. It just wouldn't listen to the 5 count of the referee. Got to listen to the referee. So they disqualified him. The only saving grace was Jesse Ventura on commentary, just crowing that they were protecting Hogan by DQing all these guys because he should have been beaten 3 times. So yeah, Jesse saved the match for me, but just on paper though, I mean, yeah, it's got to be considered the best Survivor Series team of all time.
Pretty good team.
Yeah, and again, really good show. I might do a watch along one of these days of that '89 Survivor Series, but I got to figure out how to do it on here, like where I can actually have the video of the match, because everybody knows I tried to do a watch along a few weeks ago, just me, and all you saw was me watching my iPad. I was able to get the audio intertwined in there here and there, but yeah, it was just, if you watch YouTube, you just saw me doing this.
I think the problem would be if you're putting it on YouTube would be like copyright infringement. If you're watching, if you don't cut, you can only show so much before you have to cut away, or you have to cover it up with something. Maybe you'll have to check into that.
I'll have to look into it. Because I'd love to throw some watch-alongs on here, just because that's another reason to watch wrestling. So that brings to a close our top 10, and we're gonna say goodbye here in a second, Gary. But before we do, I want to pay the bills. www.prowrestlingtees.com/JTRpod, where you can get all our t-shirts. We got some new ones uploaded this week with the logo. It looks cool. A few different colors. You can get it white, red, or not red, white, gold, or gray. Still got some cool ones. Got the I Heart Heels shirt. Our buddy Menders she's been wearing some of the shows here and there. So go there, check it out. Buy a shirt or 3. Help us keep the lights on the podcast here. And next Wednesday, the 01 shootout. Menders and I will be talking to a really cool guy named Devontae Knox. He's the current #1 contender for the 01 Junior Heavyweight Championship. But we're going to get into some news about the title picture next week, because there's some developments there. But we'll talk about that. And other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot more to say. Gary, you got anything you want to throw in before we say goodbye?
I know within the next, what was it? Were we talking about the new year when we're going to start having like some guests from the Chicago scene on and talking about the independent wrestling, and so that's something to look forward to. We got an ex-wrestler, an ex-wrestler, a current announcer, and then an ex-booker.
Cool.
And we might have some other guests after that, or in between, or we haven't nailed all of it down, but I know that's coming. So won't just be R2 mugs all the time.
I think we're shooting for January for those shows, Gary. Kick off the new year with the little Chicago indie talk, which I think is cool. I went to a few indies in Chicago when I lived up there, and it was a lot of fun. Also, December 27th, we're planning on doing the annual year in review episode. I'm working on maybe having a couple people, old friends, call in. We'll break down all the same categories we had last year. It won't be quite as like we're not going to do the match of the year fan vote this year. We'll probably just each have our own and all that. But keep an eye out on our Facebook and our Twitter for that, and we'll have that going on Tuesday, December 27th, a couple days after Christmas, and that'll be the last show of the year for Jumping the Rail. But until 2 weeks from now, we're going to say goodbye. So say goodbye, Gary.
Goodbye, Gary.
Nah, that's what I was hoping for. And for Gary, this is Redmond, and I'm reminding you all life is hard, so work stiff. See you later.